Mayor Pro Tem Noel, whenever you're ready.
Good evening. I would like to call to order the regularly scheduled Farmington Hills City Council meeting for Monday, September 28, 2020. We first will start the meeting as we always do with the Pledge of Allegiance. And I will start that. And for those at home, feel free to state the pledge with me. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. The next item on the agenda is roll call.
Yes, council members Newland. Councilmember Newland, are you present?
I'm here.
Councilmember Bullaware,
Present.
Massey,
Here.
Bridges,
Here.
Mayor Pro Tem Noel,
Here.
and I will note that Councilmember Stuckloff and Mayor Barnett are absent tonight.
Okay, the next item on the agenda is the approval of the regular session meeting agenda. And so do I have a motion?
Mayor Pro Tem Noel, this is Mike.
Okay, so I have a motion by Bridges, and do I have a second?
This is Mary Newland. I'll second.
And a second by Newland. Okay, and this is a roll call vote.
Yes, council members Newland,
Yes.
Bullaware,
Yes.
Massey,
Yes.
Bridges. That was a yes, and Mayor Pro Tem Noel.
Yes.
Thank you.
And the next item on the agenda is the item number 2, proclamation recognizing October 4th through the 10th, 2020 as Fire Prevention Week. Council Member Massey will be reading this.
Thank you, Mayor Pro Tem. A proclamation, Fire Prevention Week, October 4 through 10, 2020. Serve up fire safety in the kitchen. Whereas fire is a serious public safety concern, both locally and nationally, and the Farmington Hills Fire Department is committed to ensuring the safety and security of all those who live in our city or visit our community. And whereas homes are the locations where people are at greatest risk from fire, but working smoke alarms and having an escape plan are the most effective tools to prevent home fire-related deaths. And whereas, according to the National Fire Protection Association, in 2019, local fire departments responded to an estimated 1.3 million fires that caused roughly 3,700 civilian fire deaths and 16,600 reported civilian fire injuries, with property damage at an estimated $14.8 billion. And whereas, according to Michigan Prevention and the Michigan Fire Inspector Society, Michigan recorded 102 fire deaths in 90 fires throughout 2019. And whereas cooking is the leading cause of home fires, and 2 of every 5 home fires start in the kitchen, with 31% of those fires resulting from unattended cooking, and more than half of non-fatal home cooking fire injuries occur when victims try to fight the fires themselves. And whereas residents should stay in the kitchen when frying food on a stovetop, keep a 3-foot kid-free zone around cooking areas, and keep anything that can catch fire away from stovetops. And whereas Farmington Hills firefighter paramedics are dedicated to reducing the occurrence of home fires and home fire deaths and injuries through fire prevention education, and the department joins with the National Fire Protection Association in reminding everyone to stay alert and use caution when cooking to help protect their homes and their families. Now, therefore, be it resolved that Vicki Barnett, the mayor of the city of Farmington Hills, on behalf of the city council, does hereby proclaim October 4 through 10 2020 as Fire Prevention Week in the city of Farmington Hills and urge all citizens to follow the 2020 Fire Prevention Week theme as they serve up fire safety in the kitchen.
Thank you, Councilmember Massey. Is there anyone on the meeting from our fire department who wants to say a few words? I don't think I see anyone, but I at least just wanted to reach out and double check. Nope. Okay, I don't hear anything. Okay. We will make sure that we get that proclamation to them. The next item is correspondence. So this is for city council members. If they have any correspondence that is unique to them, that has not gone to all of us, do any city council members have anything to report? No, okay, I don't hear anything and I don't either. So then we'll move on to the consent agenda, which will be read by Councilman Bridges. Councilman Bridges, can you read the consent agenda, please? Councilmember Bridges?
Mayor Pro Tem.
Yes, we're
Mayor
ready
Pro
for the
Tem, can you hear me?
consent agenda. I can.
Oh,
yes.
I'm sorry, no problem. I'm sorry. Item number 4, recommend approval of the 2021 Michigan Indigent Defense Commission Grant Agreement. Item 5, recommend approval of the 2021 Oakland County Auto Prevention Act subrecipient agreement with the Oakland County Sheriff Office, CMR 9-20-97. Item 6, recommend approval of the with Center for and Civic Life in the amount of $92,172. Item 7, recommend of the 2020 Sheriff Office SWAT Team Agreement, CMR 9-20-98. Item 8, recommend approval of a purchase of BSNA software systems in the amount of $85,790, 9-20-99, and Caustic Center on 11 for all regular business, with the exception of election-related business. Item 10, recommend approval of an award of bid for printing and mailing of tax bills, personal property tax statements, and assessment notice to Kent Communications Incorporated for a 2-year term in the estimated amount of $11,048.24 per year with extensions, CMR 9-20-100. Item 11, recommend approval of purchase of integrated in-car and body-worn camera systems to WatchGuard in the amount of $376,223.22 and $43,505 for cloud storage per year for a 5-year period, CMR 9-20-101. Item 12, recommended approval of award of bid for a replacement rubber tire excavator to AIS Construction Equipment in the amount of $336,756.68, CMR 920-102. Item 13, recommended of award of bid for 2020 as-needed sidewalk strip lamination precision concrete in the amount of $75,000 for top extensions, CMR 9-20-103. Item 14, recommend approval of the City Council study session meeting minutes of September 14, 2020. And item 15, recommended approval of the City Council regular session meeting minutes of September 14, 2020.
Okay, thank you, Councilmember Bridges. In just a minute, I'm going to ask for a motion on the consent agenda. But before I do that, since public comment is coming up, I just want to state the number for our public to call into if they have a public comment in order to give them time to call in, and then we can vote on the consent agenda. So if you're a member of the public and want to call in for public comment, the number is 312-626-6799. Again, 312-626-6799. And then additionally, there is an ID number that you will have to enter, and that is 843-4095606. Okay, now I will ask for a motion on the consent agenda.
Mayor Pro Tem, this is Ken Massey, and I would move that the consent agenda be approved as read by Mr. Bridges.
And this is Jackie. I second that.
Okay, we have a motion and a second, and now this is a roll call vote on the consent agenda.
Council members Bolaware,
Yes.
Massey,
Yes.
Bridges,
Yes. Yes.
okay, Newland,
Yes.
and Mayor Pro Tem Knoll.
Yes.
Thank you.
Okay, so that passed unanimously. Okay, next, public questions and comments. So this is time for the public. You have 5 minutes, and this is for anyone who has anything that they would like to share, but that is not on the agenda. So if you are calling in for the public hearing, you can share your comments in the public hearing. So this section is public questions and comments. Again, anything not related to the public hearing, which is item number 3 on the agenda. And so let me ask the city clerk, is there anyone waiting to speak?
Carly will be, anybody that is in the attendance in the meeting, if you would raise your hand, if you'd wish to speak at this time.
Mayor Pro Tem Noel, I don't see any hands raised.
Okay. Seeing no one, we'll move on to the next item, which is council members' comments and announcements. Do any council members have any announcements or anything?
Yes, I do. This is Jackie. Can you hear me?
I can, yes.
Okay, great. Thank you. Yes. I just want to remind our residents that, we're now in voting, or our absentee voting, or the absent ballot votes have been going out from our city hall. I did receive mine today. I understand that there are quite a few that have been going out since last week. And also to remind them that those who do not want to mail their absent ballots, that they can drop those off. We have 2 drop-off locations, one in front of the police station on 11 Mile, and the other in the back of City Hall near the courtyard where you can enter City Hall. On the east wall there is a drop box that you could drop your ballots in, and those are both, secure and under surveillance. And I would encourage everyone to, vote early and stay safe.
Thank you. Great reminders there. Does anyone else have any announcements? No? Okay. Well, then I will turn it over to the city manager for his update. City Manager Boyer.
Thank you, Mayor Pro Tem. 2 updates tonight. Beaumont Urgent Care in Farmington Hills is doing rapid COVID testing. So anyone who needs COVID testing can get their results anywhere from 15 to 20 minutes. They're testing available 7 days a week, and it's for all ages. For more information on that, you can go to beaumonturgentcare.com. And this October 3rd from 9 a.m. to 2 p.m., the city of Novi will be hosting a household hazardous waste day. Just a reminder, anybody from Farmington Hills may use that service in Novi, and that will be at their Department of Public Works. And there's, if you're interested in more information, it's 248-208-2270. And at this time, I'd like to turn it over to our City Clerk Smith, who has a few comments about the upcoming election.
Thank you, City Manager Boyer. Yes, I did want to just share some information to our voters regarding the election information and absentee voting, as Councilmember Bolaware mentioned. We did mail out starting last Wednesday. We had several mailings delivered to the post office throughout that week. And we have issued just over 29,300 ballots. We're hearing a lot of information and discussion, and we have a lot of questions about early voting, mail-in voting versus absentee voting. So mail-in and absentee voting are exactly the same. Nothing has changed here in Michigan as far as voting, whether you say it's voting by mail or voting by absentee ballot. People can request a ballot to be mailed to them. They can come into the city clerk's office to pick up a ballot. But the votes are still not tabulated until election day. So there is no early results or tabulation of any ballots. So early voting and what you're hearing about that, I think, is more in-person voting. That did begin last week as well. Anybody that does not want to have a ballot mailed to them and wishes to come into the office can vote here in person, meaning that they'll be issued a ballot. We have voting booths here at City Hall. They can vote their ballot, seal it up, and turn it right back into the city clerk's office. Again, these ballots will not be tabulated until Tuesday. I also want to mention all precincts will be open on election day. I think there's some misinformation or misunderstanding that the precincts won't be open. All precincts will be open on election day as well. And some recent legislation has passed that will allow us to pre-process absentee ballots on the Monday before the election. That will just be opening the envelopes and verifying ballot numbers, but they have to remain in their secrecy sleeve. And again, they cannot be tabulated until election day. But that will change the last day to vote in person, the time of that, and when you can spoil your ballot. That will be now on Monday, the Monday before the election, November 2nd, up until 10 a.m. So you used to have until 4 p.m., but that time has changed with that legislation. So the last day to request a ballot and vote it in person at the clerk's office is Monday, November 2nd at 10 a.m. And that's it, unless anybody has any questions.
Yes, this is Jackie again. I know we had talked a couple of weeks ago about there is one polling location change. I think it was from the, is it the Max?
Yes, actually the Farmington Community School, thank you for bringing that up. City Council did approve a location change. Farmington Community School, which was our precinct 26, is closed, and that has moved to the Tawhid Center. So affected voters, postcards were sent out to affected voters about a week and a half ago. They'll also be getting a new voter ID card shortly, and we are going to sign. Our DPW made a couple of signs for us that we're going to put out at both locations.
Yes, and the other thing is there's extended hours during the presidential election at City Hall, in which there are some evening hours that I think is up to 7 o'clock. I believe those are posted on the governmental website, the Farmington Public Government website. They can see those hours, the extended hours for.
Yes, they are on the website, and we'll have extended hours starting last Thursday. So Tuesdays and Thursdays until October 20th. We will be open until 7 p.m. on Tuesdays and Thursdays. Then starting the 20th, we'll be open late Tuesday, Wednesday, and Thursday. That starts that 14-day in-person voter registration period. And then we also have a couple extra Saturdays. So that's all posted on the website and the hours.
All right, thank you. Mhm.
Any other questions for our city clerk? I don't hear any. I just want to say thank you in advance. I know I've been in City Hall and I've seen all of the additional work that you're going through right now. Your office is absolutely swamped and everyone is putting in long hours and working really hard. So thank you for everything you're doing, training precinct workers and answering questions. I understand the phones have been ringing off the hook because some people are confused or have questions or aren't sure about certain things. And the staff has been trying to, get the correct information out there, answer people's questions. And so your staff is going above and beyond, just working really hard to make sure people are knowledgeable and get all their questions answered and everyone can vote properly and hopefully you don't have too many spoiled ballots.
Thank
So
you.
thank you. Okay, and with that then we're on to item number 3, which is the public hearing. So before we open the public hearing, we're going to have a presentation from the developer, and I'm going to turn it over to our Director of Planning, Mr. Ed Gardner, and I think he'll probably start process off and introduce his report and introduce the developers, and I'll let you take it away.
Thank you, Mayor Pro Tem Noel, members of council. As you stated, my name is Ed Gardner, the Director of Planning and Community Development. And before you tonight is a request for a planned unit development to construct a 207 unit assisted and independent living facility. This facility is proposed for the Sisters of Mercy property, which is right behind the Caustic Center, which houses the city's elderly community center. And the proponent of this proposal is Edward Rose and Sons. As I stated before, the owner of the property is the Sisters of Mercy Regional Community. The property is approximately 15 acres and it is zoned SP5, which is a special purpose district. However, this is being developed under our planned unit development ordinance. The Planning Commission did review this proposal at their August 20th public hearing, and they have made a recommendation to City Council by a 7-0 vote. As stated by the Mayor Pro Tem, the proponent, the applicant is here and should make their presentation following my brief remarks. The city's land use consultant, Mr. Rod Arroyo, will do a land use presentation as it relates to the PUD ordinance and the zoning ordinance and all city ordinances. Following those presentations, this is a public hearing, so public input should be solicited prior to the City Council making their final deliberation on this request. So with that, I would recommend that the proponent make their presentation to council.
Hi, good evening. This is Mark Prokosky with Edward Rose and Sons. I'm calling from our offices in Bloomfield Hills, 38525 Woodward Avenue, Bloomfield Hills, Michigan, 48303. Joining me today is Warren Rose, our CEO, Francis Rose, a land acquisition analyst, Steve Henry, our Director of Architecture, myself, Mark Prokosky, Director of Acquisitions and Planning, as well as our team, Sister Mary Ellen Howard from the Sisters of Mercy, representing the sellers, as well as John Thompson from PEA, our engineering consultant, Dan Newdecker and Zach Rosenau from Pope Architects, our architectural design firm. This is the presentation that we did on August 20th to Planning Commission. So if anybody saw that before, you'll see the same thing again. We purposely tried to keep this brief because we know the planning consultant to the city will go over our plans. So we figured would leave more for the detailed plan to be discussed by your planning consultant. If we can, I'd like to start with Sister Mary Ellen giving us a little background.
Good evening. I'm Sister Mary Ellen Howard. I'm pleased to be with you this evening representing the Sisters of Mercy. The Sisters of Mercy are a Catholic religious community of women who were founded by Catherine Macaulay in Dublin, Ireland in 1831. Today, we have 6,200 sisters worldwide. You may know the Sisters of Mercy from our involvement in healthcare and education in Southeast Michigan. There are Mercy hospitals in Ann Arbor, Livonia, and Pontiac. And we sponsor the University of Detroit Mercy and in Farmington Hills, Mercy High School. I'd like to share with you a few key dates about our Farmington Hills campus. In 1960, the Sisters of Mercy purchased 160 acres on Middle Belt from 11 Mile to 12 Mile. Shortly thereafter, I-696 came through and divided our property. So we then sold the parcel that was north of the expressway. We moved our community offices from Mercy College of Detroit, and also Mercy High School was moved to the Farmington Hills campus. In 1984, we moved our retired sisters from Dubuque, Iowa and Grand Rapids to the new Macaulay Life Center in Farmington Hills. In 1993, the city of Farmington Hills purchased from us the front half of Mercy Center for the Caustic Center. We've had a very positive relationship with the city over the years as we've shared that building. And now in 2020, we've decided to sell our property because we no longer need it. There are less than 40 sisters living on the campus, and we can no longer manage it, nor can we afford it. We are fewer in number, and our average age is 78. I want to assure you that we're not leaving the area. Our sisters are moving off the campus to other facilities in the area during the demolition and construction, but we hope to move back to the campus when the Rose facility is ready for occupancy. Thank you. I would be happy to answer your questions later.
Thank you, Sister Mary Ellen. Bart Prokowski again. I'd like to just go through real quickly a little bit about the Edward Rose, who we are. We're a privately held real estate development and management company based here in Michigan. We're founded in 1921, first as a single home builder in Metro Detroit, then we transitioned to a multiple family builder across the country. We manage over 65,000 apartments in 15 states, all owned by the company. We employ over 2,000 people. And then we established the Edward Rose Senior Living brand in mid-2000s. Why Edward Rose? We have 42 plus years of multiple family ownership experience. We're self-financed through revenue generated by existing properties. The company is active in all phases of development. That's land acquisition, site planning, construction, and ultimately management. We sustain a high standard of quality throughout the property's life cycle. We have the flexibility to provide products and services for a diversity of markets. And we're a long-term multi-generational investment strategy. We build and manage to increase our portfolio. We do not look to sell. We don't look to purchase anybody else's properties. A few photos from one of our existing developments here in Novi. What we do is we aim to provide the best quality of life for our residents at the best market rate price. We have an age in place model. It's a community that starts with independent living, and people, as they need more assistance, can move to assisted living and then memory care if that's needed. We encourage an active lifestyle that fosters independence while also providing 24 hours of assistance on campus, 7 days a week. Levels of care is tailored to each need of the resident. And we offer 1 and 2 bedroom apartments for independent and assisted living, as well as studios and 1 bedrooms for memory care typically. Our amenities would typically include exercise rooms, cafes, dining rooms, movie theaters, libraries. lounge areas, activity and craft rooms, beauty salons. We have scheduled transportation for our residents. I know that's a quick overview. The picture that we're showing right now is in our development in Carmel, Indiana. If anybody wants to know more about our services, I could just basically ask you to refer to roseseniorliving.com, our website, and you'll see all of our properties and the various amenities and fits and finishes. I just wanted to touch on real quickly. So Sister Mary Ellen mentioned the property that the sisters once owned. If you can see on the left side of the screen is the Mercy High School property. It extends along Middle Belt Road from 11 mile to freeway. The blue section of the property is Mary Refuge, which is a conservation easement area that's under the control and the guidance of Six Rivers Watershed Council. So that is a separate parcel, will be a separate parcel, pardon me. The green area with the star is our proposed senior living development portion. The orange part is the City of Farmington Hills Caustic Center. And then up along 11 Mile Road, there's another green parcel, which would be also part of our property when we purchase it from the Sisters of Mercy, but it's not part of this PUD application. That would be property used for some future purpose as the city zoning sees fit. So that's not part of our application tonight, just the area with the star. Here's a quick overview of our plan. And as I said before, the city's planning consultant will probably go through more detail with the plans. But our main building would consist of a 4-story independent wing, which would be on the left side of this picture. Be 117 apartments, and then be a 3-story assisted living apartment wing, which would be 90 apartments, and that would be on the right side. The central core would be all of our central services. And then if you look at this photo on the left side, there's a white roof building. It's kind of hard to see because our parking lot's white too, but there's a white, there you go. Thank you, Mark. That white roof building is a building called Catherine's Place. Up until recently, the Sisters of Mercy were using that as a skilled nursing facility. It was a nursing home. It's in great condition. It's a new building, relatively new. I think the last 10, 15, 20 years or so. We will be repurposing that for memory care, a separate standalone memory care building, but that will be a separate site plan submission when we're ready for that building to come online. Here's a quick elevation of our building. It's a rendering of our exterior main entrance. We're careful to pick material colors to complement the Caustic Center and create a sense of community so that we're all part of the same campus. We're excited about that opportunity. And then a quick overview about our apartments, because we don't get into a whole lot of detail in the site plan, but we will have one bedrooms with dens, two bedrooms with dens, as well as 1 and 2 bedroom assisted living. Overall, and it's hard to see based on this table, but these will be some of the largest apartments available for senior living in the whole market. We will complement what we've already provided at Novi, that we're proud of that building, and it has some smaller units, so we wanted to provide something that would complement and not compete. So this building was intentionally, all the apartments are larger. If somebody's looking for a studio independent living apartment in the future, they would probably be steered towards Novi. If they want a larger 1 bedroom or a larger 2 bedroom and a den, they would be steered towards Farmington Hills. These are just a couple of photos. We had a drone do a couple of photos at a 50-foot elevation, which would be about the height of our 4-story building, just to show everybody what's in the vicinity. This is a view of north. If you look, you can barely see through the trees. You'll see the freeway. The grassy area in front of the freeway is a berm that's, I believe, constructed and within either the conservation easement or the Department of Transportation right-of-way. The next one is a south view. We're looking across some of the existing buildings. The buildings with the flat roofs will be demolished. These are some of these residence halls right now for the Sisters of Mercy. The green roof building on the right side of the photo is the large chapel, so we'll be maintaining that. Thank you, Mark. That's hard to see in the trees there, but that's the sagged roof building, so we'll be part of that. We'll be maintaining that. see, our west view is the white roof building they spoke about earlier. That's Catherine's Place. And then the peak on the left side of that. So Catherine's Place will be repurposed as memory care, a future site plan submission. And then the peaked white roof building is a small chapel that we'll also maintain. It's a very beautiful structure. It'll be incorporated into our Catherine's Place memory care development. And then that's our east view, looking at the cell tower that exists, the existing roadway, which will be repurposed, and then the freeway, if you can see through the trees, would be on the left side. So that just kind of gives everybody an overview. So if you need any more information, please contact us, or please feel free to visit our roseseniorliving.com. We will provide at least an insight and show you the fit and finish of all the products that we build in the area. Thank you. And if you have any questions, we can we'll wait until the appropriate time.
Why don't we go through, I think Mr. Rod Arroyo has his report. So why don't we go through the presentation, and then we can have, we'll open up the public hearing, and then after that we'll do council questions.
Okay, thank you, Mayor Pro Tem Knoll. This is Rod Arroyo with Giffords Webster. I'm going to go over our review, which you have in your packet, and hit some of the planning information related to this application. This property, you can see from the map that shows the location and the zoning. This is zoned SP5, Special Purpose District. One of the uses that's permitted in the SP5 district is elderly care and services. The applicant is, as you know, seeking PUD approval. They've gone through the site quite a bit. As you can see, they own a much larger piece than is actually part of this PUD. There's a total of almost 54 acres, and what they're actually developing in the north portion, north of the Caustic Center, is roughly 15.5 acres. The applicant has gone through the plans in terms of buildings that are going to be saved and those that aren't, so I won't go into that in a lot more detail. In terms of adjacent property, there is an existing single-family subdivision located to the east, Farm Meadow Sub. I-696 is located to the north. The Caustic Center is to the south, and Mercy High School and the conservation easement are located to the west. Going on to the next map there, so I'll make sure I'm covering all of those. That's the site. Okay, so that's the existing conditions. Showing the existing conditions of the property. There with a number of existing buildings that are part of the Sisters of Mercy complex, and you can see the access all the way down to 11 Mile and 2 points of access, as well as the existing Caustic Center. Let's go to the next one. And then now we have the site plan. So I'll continue on based on that on the screen. So I think you're mostly familiar with the PUD qualification. We have the standards in your ordinance that need to be reviewed every time a planned unit development comes before you. There's specific criteria, and they're in our letter. They're listed A through E, and it must be demonstrated that all of the following criteria will be met. And then item E itself has a number of options, and you have to meet at least one of those. But just to hit the highlights here, you can do a PUD in any zoning district, so that's not an issue. The PUD itself shall not be used for the sole purpose of avoiding applicable zoning requirements. We don't believe that happens to be the case here. The use is generally permitted in the SB5 district anyway. They're looking for some creativity and some relief in order to provide for development on a fairly complex and compact site. The PUD shall not be used in situations where the same land objectives can be accomplished by the application of conventional zoning provisions. Once again, I think as the applicant has pointed out and is also in the packet, this is a very unique parcel. It has a number of buildings that are somewhat obsolete, as well as an unusual shape and configuration. And so we believe the planned unit development approach does make sense on this property. Under number D, the planned unit development option may only be effectuated when the proposed land use will not materially add service and facility loads beyond those contemplated in the future land use plan. We believe that's generally met by the proposal, and then the plan unit development must meet at a minimum one of the following objectives. And the Planning Commission found that it met number 2, to permanently establish land use patterns which are compatible or which will protect existing or planned uses. Number 6, to promote the goals and objectives of the master plan for land use. Number 7, to foster an aesthetic appearance of the city through quality building design and development, preservation and provision of trees and landscaping beyond minimum requirements, and the preservation of unique or historic sites or structures, and the provision of open space or other desirable features beyond minimum requirements. And then finally, number 8, to bring about the redevelopment of sites where an orderly change of use is determined to be desirable. So the Planning Commission did grant preliminary PUD qualification back in April, and then they have now recommended approval of the final PUD plan and site plan that you have before you this evening. And then in terms of the site plan, I'm going to go through some of the highlights there. We've already talked about the number of units. The master plan does in fact address this area, and I think you have some of the excerpts from the master plan, so you're aware of that. There is some relief that's being requested as part of the PUD in terms of building height. Within the SP5 district, the maximum building height is 30 feet. One of the levels of this development is actually a 3-story development at about 41 feet 7 inches. And the taller part is 4 stories, and that has a height of 54 feet. So that exceeds the maximum of 30 feet. So the applicant through the PUD process is asking for relief. And the SP5 actually has provisions where you could potentially go up, and I'll go over this in a minute, you can even go up to 40 feet. So even with that though, they still need relief in order to build the development that they are proposing. Another component of the site is parking. Your ordinance does allow for the land banking of parking, meaning taking certain parking spaces that may be technically required by the ordinance, but the applicant believes are not going to be necessary. They can set those aside, and then those would only be constructed if it was determined by the city that they're needed because they did not have enough parking. So the applicant has done a conceptual layout, which is on the PUD plan, showing, Mr. Steck's kind of pointing to that, showing that area that could be, the parking could be expanded if it's determined by the Planning Commission that it needs to happen. We have found, based on our experience with this use, that it generally does require a lower level of parking. We would be very surprised that the land bank parking area would ever have to be put into action, but it's there just in case it is needed. In terms of overall circulation, there is access, as you've seen from the previous drawings, down to 11 Mile. That easterly access will be their way in. There will be an emergency way in from coming in the westerly access through the Costic property, but the primary access is going to be the easterly access, which Mr. Steck is showing there on your screen. And as part of that, the applicant through the PUD process is requesting that they are able to place some signs on city property. And they're asking for 4 signs, 1 at each entrance, and then 2 internal signs. It's the recommendation of staff that the easterly most signs be approved, meaning the one at 11 Mile at the easterly drive, and then the internal one that's Mr. Steck is pointing to there. And that as part of that approval, the option in the sign package that would include the Costic Center on the top of the sign and the name of the Rose Senior project under that be the option that is approved as part of the PUD. In terms of section 4.2.3, which is elderly care services in the SP5 district, this section also has a maximum floor area ratio, which is the ratio of the floor area of the buildings to the land area. It's set at a pretty low level of 0.16. primarily because originally it was envisioned this would be a massive complex that may be developed with lots of open space. But because of the type of development it is, the open space is actually incorporated into portions of the caustic center and into the conservation easement. So that, once again, that's what makes this an unusual piece of property. And so their floor area ratio is 0.45 for the developed portion of their property. So they're asking for relief as part of the PUD process. And then also there are some unique internal setback requirements in the SP5 district, and they're looking for some relief from those as well. Once again, given the compact nature and also the desire to get as much of this development west of the existing single family subdivision. You can see that they're maintaining, the idea here is to maintain that pretty significant berm and landscaping that's provided along the east edge of the site adjacent to the Farm Meadows subdivision. The applicant is looking to maintain that and also to supplement that with additional plantings in and around the developed portion of the property, as well as around where the parking areas are going to be constructed. So that's, I think, going to be a significant improvement in the area. You'll also note that the actual nearest building itself is over 480 feet from the east property line. So there's substantial separation from the residential, single-family residential dwellings in the subdivision located to the east of the buildings that are in fact proposed. So I mentioned that you can potentially have that increase to 40 feet under the special provisions of SP5. They are looking for relief from that. And then they've satisfied the other outstanding plan items through a submittal that was done administratively after the Planning Commission had made a recommendation on this. So just to summarize, the applicant is looking for relief as part of this PUD for building height, floor area ratio, and internal setbacks. And then they're also looking for the placement of those signs on city property, which I just mentioned, and that the staff is recommending that the easterly signs be approved with the provision of the caustic center on the top of the sign. That is a summary of our report, and I'll be happy to try to answer any questions.
Okay, thank you for that report. I think what we'll do at this time is open up the public hearing, and then to give the public a chance, because they may have some comments or questions, and then council can speak and have a dialogue with you in order to ask our questions. So before I open up the public hearing, I'm going to read the number one more time for the public to call. And again, it is 312-626-6799. And the ID number is 843-40956-006. And I don't have a gavel, so I'm just going to announce that the public hearing is now open. And I'll turn it over to our city clerk or to Carly to let me know if there's anyone already waiting to speak.
Yes, we have one hand raised. Mary, if you want to unmute yourself.
Okay, Mary, go ahead. You have 5 minutes. Whenever you're ready, go ahead.
Hello?
Hi, Mary. Is this Mary?
Yes, it is.
Hi, Mary. Go ahead. You have 5 minutes.
Yes, we have lived here since this has been Farmington Township next to Mercy. And I did not know this was being developed, and I'm very much against this. The high school right now, the traffic cannot be handled when the school gets out at 3 o'clock on 11 Mile. This is going to create a bigger problem. I realize the sisters may be struggling financially, but I think the best thing would be for the city to take this over as a park, not to develop this. I'm very much against this. And I don't know if it's too late. It sounds like this is a done deal, and I didn't know anything about this. But like I said, we've lived here since it's been Farmington Township, and I think that should be made into a natural area for everybody to share.
City Clerk, can I get your last name, please?
Willer?
Thank you.
All right, so thank you.
Mary, are you still there? No, we lost. Okay. Well, thank you, Mary, for your comments. Do we have anyone else, Carly, that would like to speak, or any hands raised?
Mayor Pro Tem, no, I don't see any other hands.
Okay, then we will go ahead and close the public hearing. And then we will now enter into council comments. So I think because I can't see the council to know who wants to speak, I think what I'll just do is go down the line and name your name, and I'll say the council member's name, and then you can go ahead and ask your questions of either the developer or of our planning director or of our planning consultant, or for anyone who has previously spoken. So I will start with Councilmember Bullaware.
Yes, I do have a couple of questions regarding this particular project. I am somewhat concerned about the building height deviation going to a maximum of 54.5 feet. I think the normal ratio, the normal height was somewhere in the 30s. So this is going to be a 3-story or 4-story building. I understand that in some areas it will be lower, the height will be lower than others, but in certain sections it may be 3 or 4 feet. Am I correct in that assumption? I'm asking that of anyone of the builder or Mark who can answer that question for me.
This is Rod Arroyo with Giffords Webster, planning consultant. I can answer that for you. The proposed building, the tallest section will be the westerly portion of the larger complex, farthest away from the single family. That's the one that's 54 feet. And then the 3-story portion is the easterly most easterly section of the development. And that is also at 3 stories. As I mentioned, the buildings themselves, the closest the buildings will be to the residential is 481 feet. And there will be the landscaping that is maintained.
Yeah. I understand that. You know, I walked that area yesterday in Farm Meadows subdivision. And, you know, right now when you look out from the subdivision to the west where this will be built, you can't see any buildings or any of that there. And with the construction of this particular building, when you look out, although you may be 400 feet away or so, it still will change the landscape for those residents. And for myself, who live north of this particular project, it will change the view that we see as well. I live on the other side of 696. And right now that's just open land. And I understand that this is a project that the Sisters of Mercy would like to see completed, but I am concerned about the height of that particular building. Last year around this time, there's another senior citizen or building that's going up on Middle Belt and 12 Mile at the site of the old restaurant there. And at that time, there was some concern, and that building, although the people in my subdivision and quite a few others didn't like what was going on, it's 2 stories. And now we're seeing, some additional senior buildings being built within the same vicinity. And these are going to be quite, much taller from the 2-story that was proposed and implemented or approved on the Middle Belt and 12-mile area. Now 11-mile and Middle Belt to the east of that, we're talking about including a 3 or 4-story, senior living complex. And the other area that I'm somewhat concerned about is the proposed floor area ratio, where we're going from 0.19, I believe, to 0.45. And could you explain again? I need a better understanding of why there's going to be more density there. Is that for profitability purposes, or to make the site worthwhile to build, or exactly why is that being proposed?
Sure. This is Rod Arroyo once again, planning consultant for the city. The floor area ratio, as I mentioned, is the ratio of the building floor area to the land area. So what happens when you have a lot of when you have a fairly compact land area that you're building on, because other land is being used for open space, and you are only looking at the land area that you're building on, and you're putting on a building like they're proposing, you tend to get a fairly high floor area ratio. And if for example, there was not the dedication of all the open space, and there wasn't the preservation of setbacks, and this was spread out differently, potentially you'd have a much lower floor area ratio, but at the same time you might not necessarily have the setbacks from the residential, and you wouldn't have some of the other features. So that's part of what their request is for more compact development in order to maintain more open area elsewhere on the property.
Okay, and then the signage package on the entry road from 11 Mile into the complex on the east portion. I saw something that I guess proposed signage.
Yes.
I don't know, we can go back to that or not. Get that really quickly.
Yeah,
right now, I don't think there's anything on that particular side. I think coming in the Costic, the first roadway from Middle Belt into Sisters of Mercy, we see the Sister of Mercy sign, and I think there's a Costic sign in front of the building per se. So those are, like, they're pretty large signs. And in them, when I'm looking at them from the proposed, it's like, Rose Senior Living is larger than our own community center language or letters. And if I can't see the dimension of those signs. I don't see, how many feet, what the height, what the width will be for those. I cannot tell from the renderings that's on the screen how large those signs will be. I can't tell from that. So is that information included anywhere in the packet?
Yeah, bear with me for a minute. I'm going to see if on the version I have on my screen, it's not legible. I'm going to see if I can find it.
All right, Mayor Pro Tem, this is Mark Perkowski with Edward Rose. We do have our full set of plans, so it's the same one you're looking at, but the dimensions are kind of hard to see on the screen. We are showing that sign to be 12 feet 7 inches wide. The sign itself, with the letters, 5 feet tall, and then the masonry bases in addition to those dimensions.
And how large are those? So it's going to be a pretty large sign.
So the panels are this, okay, the first one of the first questions was, is the Rose name and the Caustic Activity Center are the same size?
That's a 12 feet by 5 feet?
12 feet by 2.5 feet each panel. So each panel is the same, 2.5 feet tall.
Okay.
And then the overall height of the sign is 7 feet 9 inches. The overall width is 16 feet. While I'm thinking about this, I did want to point out that that east entrance currently has 2 signs. One says the Caustic Center. I think it's a stone, if I remember, a field stone sign. And then just to the west, but still at the east entrance, is a changeable message sign, which the Caustic Center controls, I guess, for activities.
Yeah.
So this would replace the the eastmost sign at the east driveway. It would take away that masonry stone one and just put up one single sign.
All right. Okay, and how many apartments or living facility, you know, how many apartments is this kind? I think you mentioned that before. Was it?
So it would be 207 in the new building plus 27 memory care in the future site plan submission for the Catherine's place. So a total of 234 apartments.
All right. Okay, thank you.
Okay, Newland. Questions?
Yeah, this is Mary Newland. Back to the signage. So these signs will replace the existing signs along 11 Mile, correct?
They would replace the eastmost sign, the changeable message sign that the city owns. We weren't going to touch that. That's on the city property. Actually, they're both on the city property. One's within an easement, one's not, I believe.
And what kind of lightage will there be on these signs at night?
Yeah, these are internally lit signs.
Okay.
So just the panels themselves would be lit.
Okay.
I believe right now, I'm sorry. I believe right now the current signs are ground lit.
Yes,
if they are
that's
lit,
what I'm asking.
Yeah, that's right. So we wouldn't be doing that. The changeable message sign that the city does, that's separate. I don't know how that's lit.
And just the font would be lit up, the names would be lit up, not the white background.
Okay, yeah, so sorry, just for clarification, just the letters themselves would be lit up at night and not the whole panel. So it's kind of a relief looking sign.
Okay.
If I may, we did show on our plan, and obviously it looks like the city staff is recommending that we don't propose that west sign. The only reason we showed a west sign along the west driveway is because there's one there now, and it just says Sisters of Mercy. So whether it's a replacement sign, a temporary placeholder until something else is done, or whether that sign gets removed, we just want to highlight the fact that it exists. And when the Sisters of Mercy move, it won't be appropriate for any purpose. So I just wanted to point that out. That's all the purpose was there.
Okay. And then the parking garage, these 12 stalls. These are for existing, they will be for the residents?
Correct. They'd be available for residents. Most of our residents won't drive. Some of them choose to keep their cars. And those that choose to keep the cars, some of them prefer to have it in the garage.
Okay. And then the main entrance for the parking garage will be coming off of which it will be coming off of 11 Mile then, correct?
Let's see. Yes, for our whole development, our entrance will be off the 11 Mile entrance off the east side. And then the garages, you would park in the garages just through the parking lot. You drove through the.
Okay. I'm just trying to think if there's any more questions. Of course, my always question is what is your average cost for the residents to move into such a facility? Is it for Medicare as well as Medicaid recipients, or is it total out of pocket?
This is all private pay. I would have to check maybe our current rents that we have in Novi, but I believe our base rent there goes from about $3,500 per month all the way up to $7,000 or more, depending on the needs. The more expensive will probably be more the memory care, people who need more attention, more personal care. The lower number there would be for people who just want the basic services, the meal prep, the house cleaning, and things like that. So the more assistance you need with your daily functions, the rate schedule will change.
Okay, and back to the driveway, the exit, the entrance coming, the driveway coming in off of 11 Mile. I'm trying to get a feel for how far is it away from the corner.
That one, it's an existing road right now. I don't know if I have that dimension.
That is
Because
an existing
Because
road.
because we are looking at quite a bit of new, more traffic coming in and out off the driveway.
So there's a berm there now with some landscaping. I would have to guess that if the road's 24 feet, that's got to be at least 75 feet, but I could be wrong. I'm just looking at the scale of the drawing and kind of extrapolating there. It's probably 50 or 75 feet of green space between that east property line and the existing driveway. So we'd be using that existing driveway.
Okay, I'm just asking because, I mean, I think it's a great development. I'm just asking because of the more additional traffic, because right now there's probably not a lot of traffic, but then you look at delivery trucks for food, delivery trucks for, equipment, laundry. So it's definitely going to increase a lot more traffic on this particular corner.
We did complete a traffic study and we had, I think it was minimal recommended improvements. I don't think we've received any reviews yet from the city staff, but it did say, I mean, most of our residents don't drive. We do have a bus, but I think all the buses right now at Caustic Center are also, servicing the seniors. So I don't think the net increase was that great. I'll have to look at the numbers.
Is there an estimate yet for how many, what the employment will be for the facility?
Yes. Our communities typically have about 60 full-time equivalent jobs, including sales, marketing, clinical directors, LPNs, licensed practical nurses, resident assistants, housekeeping and maintenance staff, bus drivers, activities directors. Some of those are part-time, and then also during construction, there'll probably be 150 jobs during the construction.
Okay, thank you.
Trades. You're welcome. Yeah, that's all three shifts. Yeah.
Councilmember Bridges. Councilmember Bridges, do you have any questions?
Can you hear me?
I can.
Yes. Okay, I'm sorry. Thank you, Mayor Pro Tem. No, I just have a couple of questions. As I read the document, it appears that the proponent has met the PUD standards for this property, proposed development as outlined by the Planning Commission. But I do have some questions regarding, this is a question for planning consultant Roya. Are there any outstanding conditions that the proponent has not met for his last communication with the proponent regarding the Planning Commission or city's recommendation?
I believe all the site plan issues have been resolved. There will have to be, as part of the PUD agreement, several, for example, there's an existing easement that goes down to 11 Mile Road that's going to have to be adjusted to match exactly where the road is. Some minor details like that will be addressed as part of the PUD agreement, which will come back before City Council. Like, for example, there were a couple minor site plan changes that the Planning Commission discussed. Those were made and submitted and have been reviewed. So those outstanding issues, to the best of my knowledge, have been resolved.
Okay. The other question in regards to the relief that the proponent is seeking, the height extension floor space, is in regards to this. I know the city gets the benefit of having this property developed, and it also is consistent with our master plan, particularly for future use for the property itself. We wanted to expand access or opportunities for our senior population, and this property does that. is there an additional, based on the relief that Mr. Arroyo and the benefits the city is receiving, what is your determination on that?
Well,
Regarding the
sure. There's a couple of other items that I think are pretty important. Obviously, there's an existing chapel that has some, I think, there's some sentimental attachment to that within the community. I know a lot of people have been married there. Somebody in my office, I think, was actually married at that chapel. And that chapel is going to continue and be available. So that's, I think, one of the benefits that's associated with the PUD is that's not being demolished, even though that is on their property. And it's really not something that is of significant use to the applicant. I think it's going to be more of use to the community through operations through the Caustic Center. I think the other thing to keep in mind with this also, because I did a tour of the buildings and of the site and the internal, these are the existing buildings, the ones that are going to be demolished. They are very well constructed of concrete, very thick walls. These types of buildings, and because of the way they are in fact constructed and the layout of them, they're really somewhat obsolete in terms of the functionality. I know it's been very difficult for the sisters to find another user to just come in and want to use the buildings as they are or try to renovate them, because it is an older design and isn't really that attractive to the market. But also the cost of demolition, I think, is going to be substantially higher and for this project than it would be for a comparable project that was built differently. And so you have the advantage of buildings that could sit empty and obsolete for many, many years. And in this particular instance, you have someone coming in who's going to remove those obsolete buildings and replace them with new construction. So I think that's something that maybe hasn't been talked about a lot, but it's certainly worth considering. And then the preservation of the chapel structure itself, I think, is also worthy of noting.
Okay. Last question in regards to the 54 height, proposed height of 54 versus the standard ordinance at 40 feet. What's the impact there in regards to the how it would impact the character of that area there in your estimation?
I believe the way it's been proposed has been done in a very sensitive manner because the tallest portion is the farthest from the single family subdivision. And I believe that because of that distance and because of the existing landscaping and the supplemental landscaping, it's going to minimize the visual impact of that. Plus, as for those of us who've been by this property on 696, it's heavily wooded along 696 as well. So while yes, potentially you might see some of the building if you're really looking hard, I think most people aren't really going to notice it. There's a grade change, there's trees there. And I think in terms of if you were going to place a taller building somewhere and try to tuck it away so that the impacts of it were minimized, I think this is certainly a place you would seek to do it. And so from that perspective, and I think trying to be sensitive to the site itself and the surrounding conditions, I think it's achieving some of those goals of being sensitive.
Thank you. Appreciate it.
Next, Councilman Massey.
Thank you, Madam Mayor Pro Tem. And got a couple of thoughts and a couple of questions. This looks like it has been a well discussed and well thought out plan. And a couple of things though, and perhaps Mr. Gardner or Mr. Steck could touch on what I saw in the notes from the Planning Commission meeting, a lot of discussion around repairs of the road. And that seemed to be a little bit of a point of contention. Could you just kind of elucidate a bit on what that was?
Mr. or Councilman Massey, this is Ed Gardner. That was just regarding the shared drive and what would be needed to bring that drive up to standards so that it can be used by both Edward Rose and the Caustic Center. It's going to get a lot of use. Also, we're going to have to, within the PUD agreement, talk about shared responsibilities for that entrance drive on maintenance and whatnot. So those are the types of things that are going to need to be addressed as part of the PUD agreement.
Okay, thank you.
And there's also some utilities that need to be looked at and possibly upgraded. That's all being done, looked at from our engineering department, and will be resolved during engineering review.
Okay, thank you. I appreciate that, Mr. Gardner. The one public comment, Ms. Willer brought up that she was opposed to this because it had been a natural area. Actually, what appears to me to be the development is to take down the buildings that are already there. This is not encroaching or taking down more per se. It's actually replacing the buildings that are there, but preserving the chapel. And I did like her comment, and it would be great to take it over and make it a natural area and a park. But a number of years ago, our voters turned down our ability to do land banking, but that would focus in on things that were not already being built on. So I am sensitive to that. Her other concern about increasing traffic, actually, we've already heard that most of the residents won't be driving. So actually, this type of application has a lower traffic impact, as I've seen these before. Plus, as the Caustic Center use shifts, when the new activity center goes live, I would expect that some of that traffic as well would be dropping in the area. So both of those things, I think, were addressed. I also saw they were talked about in the Planning Commission, various meetings that they had on this. And the question around lighting of these signs, and I think that was Councilwoman Newland brought that up. We do have all of these signs, no matter how they're lighted, are going to have to comply with our city ordinances when it comes to lighting of signs. And from the descriptions by the proponent, it almost sounds like these will be better because it won't be lit all the time. It'll just be the back panels, and those will have to comply with that. In terms of the height, Mr. Arroyo, or I'm not sure whose question this would go to, but the chapel that's there has a very kind of peaked top. Any idea how tall that is?
That's that building is 60 feet tall to the peak of the chapel. It's actually a little bit longer or taller than that. There's a couple of spires that go up more, but about 60 feet.
So it's about 60 feet. So this ultimately putting the taller portion of this building to the most distal distance away from the subdivision, and even with the increased height, probably with the decrease in grade and everything else, plus all of the plantings and those types of things that would go in it, probably, if you don't see that chapel height now, you won't see it then. So I'm pretty comfortable with that. Plus, I'm looking at when I read through all of our planning commission colleagues, when I read through their 3 meetings, and they were all essentially unanimous that this met the requirements for the PUD, it made me very comfortable with this. And it looks like a lot of work had gone into the development. So I want to thank you for that. Madam Mayor Pro Tem, that'll satisfy my comments and questions.
Okay, thank you. And I have a few too. A lot of my questions have already been asked, but I have a few, and I also want to clarify a couple points. Interesting, you just brought up about the chapel. So the chapel height is currently 60 feet. And what, could you remind me, I think I wrote it down, but I just want to verify the heights of the 3-story and 4-story of the different buildings, the one for the independent and the assisted. Could you remind me the heights of those?
This is Rod Arroyo. The 4-story is 54 feet
Mhm.
and the 3-story is between 41 and 42 feet.
Great. Okay, so basically even the tallest building is still going to be less than the current chapel height that's already there, right? So we're not
That's
actually,
correct.
so actually the building height is not going to, as far as the view is concerned, it will not be higher than the chapel. Okay, that's good to know. Also on the obsolete buildings, so you mentioned that by increasing the floor area ratio, you're able to actually keep the buildings further away from the residents. But also it was mentioned that basically these buildings are not, we're not increasing buildings, they're replacing buildings. So is it possible to go back to the current site and just show once more the buildings that are being torn down? Just maybe put your cursor all around that. So actually look at the amount of buildings that are all being torn down. So it looks like the new buildings are actually going to take up less square feet than what's currently on the site. Am I correct in that?
Yes, that's correct. Yes, we are taking
Okay.
down.
So actually the new buildings will be less than what's currently on the site. So the use of the site will actually be less intense than it is now.
The footprint, I'm sorry.
The footprint of the site, correct.
Yeah, that's right. The footprint of our
Yeah.
building is smaller than the collective footprint of all those other ones. But because
Yep.
we're going up another floor, we're squeezing it together. So it's a
Right, you're keeping
bigger
it
building.
further
Yes.
away from the residents, and you're actually having less of a footprint that's currently on the site. And then
Correct.
also, there was some mention about open space. And could you just repeat once more how many acres of the entire property you're developing, or go back to maybe the map that shows all of the open space that's actually staying? That's currently what's outlined in black is in a conservation easement. And if I'm incorrect, please correct me, but as I believe it, it's in a conservation easement that the sisters have, and that will not be developed. So is that correct?
Yes. Yeah,
So
the conservation easement is 34 acres.
Right, which is much larger because there's only 15 acres being developed. And again, this 15 acres is currently already developed. This isn't a new footprint. It's taking existing buildings and actually putting less building space on the existing footprint. And then also all of that space in green to the east, that is not planned to be developed. That's not part of this development either.
Correct. It's
Right.
not part of this PUD.
Right, it's just where the star is. So a lot of the open space will be staying. And then also there's been questions about parking. So you mentioned 60 staff. Is that per shift?
No, that's total total full-time equivalent.
Okay, so how many do you expect approximately per shift that would be there at one time?
Our peak shift would be probably around meal times, dinner time, so it'd be about 20 to 30.
Okay, so that's 20 to 30 cars. And then you said the majority of residents, obviously the majority of residents in memory care and assisted living aren't going to be driving, but also the majority, you said, in independent. A few may have cars, some might, some not. But they're probably not taking the cars out that often for the ones that do. So I don't know if there's a way to estimate how many cars you think the residents might have and how many kind of trips in and out they would have. Do you have any number you can, just based on your other facilities, can you kind of estimate that?
When it comes to parking, all of our other developments have one parking space per apartment, and that includes for employees. So that's what we're proposing here. Novi is our most recent one. We have no problem with parking there. We even hold special events there. We have no problem with parking. In the instance of this property, we do show the land bank. So we want we're going to build one parking space per apartment to start. And then we're showing an auxiliary space that we're hoping to save for open space, but if parking is necessary, we show the land bank parking. But in addition to that, and this is something we can explore through the PUD process, I had mentioned one time, and I don't know if I got I can't remember the reception we received, but if there's an opportunity, our peaks are typically during holidays and times when the Caustic Center is closed. So we may ask the city for, an easement that we can park and maybe, somehow compensate the city for those the holiday peaks that we might need that lot. And I think that would be, maybe an attractive alternative to, as opposed to putting in parking that's only needed, a few days a year, if
Okay.
that.
Okay, thank you. I guess my question wasn't so much about parking spaces, but just more about traffic, trying to address traffic concerns. And Council Member Massey did mention, the city purchased the former Harrison High School, and it's now being turned into an activity center, the Hawk, and it will be open next year. So much of what's currently happening, the programming that had been happening at the Caustic Center, will be moving over to the Hawk. So I know this is hard to estimate. I don't have a number inside my head, but I do want to, let people know that, for example, the Caustic Center, they would often have a parking lot full of hundreds of cars that were all there for an event. Say, for example, the youth theater, their performances, their rehearsals. All of those activities, all of that type of programming will be moved to the Hawk. And so a lot of the traffic that's currently coming and going from the Caustic Center, or maybe not so much now because things are shut down due to COVID, but last year, we'll say pre-COVID, a lot of that traffic won't be happening anymore. So in a way, I see this as an exchange. I mean, there may be 20 to 30 staff coming and going per shift, but the Caustic Center easily had 20 to 30 cars coming and going, especially after school, because all of the after school programming was done at the Caustic Center. So you easily had 30 parents coming in between the hours of 5 to 7, kind of during rush hour, 5 to 6, I should say, to pick up their middle school kids that were there for the after school program. All of that's being moved to the Hawk. So I think the traffic demands at the Caustic Center are going to be greatly diminished. While the senior programming will still take place there, a lot of the seniors carpool because they don't drive. A lot of them take the bus. So I do think that the Caustic Center traffic will diminish, and that might be a wash there because of so much of the programming getting moved to the Hawk. And as you said, a lot of the visitors that are coming to visit family members, I understand that they're going to come around the holidays or maybe for Sunday dinner. Those are times where the Caustic Center isn't busy at all, even with senior programming. Let's see. So, and also I just want to say on the signage, I do think signage is important to have good wayfinding. Because the development sits behind the Caustic Center, it sits quite far back. I think signage will be important. I do like the idea of the Caustic Center and Rose consolidating signs and sharing a sign. I would rather have one big sign than two multiple signs. I think multiple signs starts to look really junky, whereas I'd rather go a little bigger and be able to consolidate it on one sign. So I appreciate the fact that you did that. Yeah, I like how you've used the site. I liked how you have worked with the natural features of the site, how you basically, you're tearing down obsolete buildings and building in that exact same footprint. I think that's a good use of space and a way to conserve the natural resources. So I think that's real smart as well. So I don't have any other questions.
Madam Mayor Pro Tem?
Yes.
This is Ken. I would like to make a motion if you're ready.
Yes, we've all had a chance to answer, ask questions. So yeah, I'm ready for a motion.
Okay, I would resolve that the PUD Plan 1/2020 dated 11 September 2020 be approved as presented with several conditions. Those conditions are final approval of all necessary access easements, any damage that might be caused to the entry road from 11 Mile to the subject site as a result of construction would have to be repaired by the applicant. The applicant would not be required to repair the existing damage to the access road or any damage that engineering division determines that they did not cause. The third would be that the easternmost entrance sign with the Caustic Center sign on top and the eastern internal wayfinding sign would be permitted to be located on city property, and further resolve that the city attorney prepares the appropriate PUD agreement stipulating the final development.
Support.
Okay, we have a motion by Massey and support by Bridges, and this is a roll call vote.
Council members Massey,
Yes.
Bridges,
Yes.
Newland,
Yes.
Bulaware.
No,
Was that a no?
it was a no.
Okay, thank you. And Mayor Pro Tem Knoll.
Yes. And with that, we have 4 votes in favor and 1 opposed. So the motion has passed.
Thank you.
Thank you. And best of luck with your development. And I just want to say to Sister Mary Ellen, you know, I just want to say we've appreciated the cooperative working relationship we've had with the sisters for, goodness, how many years now? 40 years?
60.
Oh, 60. Okay. Well, I just wanted to say it's been a pleasure, and I want to thank you for all of your involvement and contributions you have brought Farmington Hills. And we look forward to new opportunities. You know, the community evolves and changes, and we understand that, but we appreciate the fact that you still want to be involved in the community. And look forward to another 60 years, hopefully.
Thank you.
Okay. The next item is new business, but there is no new business tonight. So the next item after that would be adjournment. So I need a motion for adjournment.
Madam Mayor, go ahead.
You go ahead.
I was going to say, Madam Mayor Pro Tem, I would so move that we adjourn.
And Newland, are you supporting?
I will support, yes.
Okay. All those in favor say aye.
It has to be a roll call vote as well.
Oh, sorry about that.
Sorry.
Roll call vote. Okay.
Sounds unanimous, but council members Bridges. Councilmember Bridges.
Yes.
Okay. Newland,
Yes.
Bulaware,
Yes.
Massey,
Yes.
and Mayor Pro Tem Knoll.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Okay, so that did pass unanimously. And so with that, we are adjourned. And good evening, Farmington Hills.